Good morning. Welcome once again to Off the Shelf Books on Tour. We are in studio today to review a book, In the Murmuring Trees. It's written by Mr. Robert Leonard Jr., and it's a very eclectic collection. You don't zero in on any one thing, do you?
Sometimes no.
No. There's about 120, 125 poems. How long did it take you to accumulate them?
Oh, maybe a year or two.
Did you sit down one day and say, I'm going to write a book on poetry, or are you just writing?
I just write, and eventually they all just gather up, and for whatever reason, I just decided to just throw them all into one file and send it off to see if I could get it published.
Okay, and?
And I was able to get it published. Of course, with poetry, you got to front the money sometimes. So I did that with a tax return.
Ah,
So it wasn't too bad.
good investment, but what an opportunity. That didn't happen 15 years ago. You'd have had to have a heck of a lot more than a tax return to get published.
Oh, sure.
So this gives you an opportunity that wasn't available to others. How has it been received?
So far, so good. It sold 87 copies over the course of the year so far.
Very good. And do people write you and tell you whether they like it or not?
No, but I have heard from some people I know that bought the book and said it was good, and some of the comments that leave me scratching my head, but...
Well, because everybody perceives things differently. I love it when I write something and they don't know I wrote it, and I'm standing offside listening to them critique it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's wicked cool.
Definitely.
Do you have a favorite?
Maybe a couple.
I liked Circle of Friends, which is the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And at first it appeared dark. And what I often do in this situation is I read it, then I put it aside, and then I read it again. Because I often enjoy it more the second time.
Mm-hmm.
And at first I thought Circle of Friends was somewhat dark. But it's not.
Nope.
No.
It's just about friendship.
Yeah, but a specific friendship that lasted throughout the years, from Hawthorne, Thoreau, Alcott.
Oh, yeah. And Mr. Channing, who no one really knows about.
He was a quiet guy.
Maybe. His poetry wasn't as successful as it seems, and his uncle was a little bit more famous. Same name, too.
Yeah, but maybe he couldn't get published.
Oh, no, he got published, but it just wasn't as well received. Because they all fronted the money back then.
Yeah? Yeah.
And the one that he also had some bad luck. The one book of his that sold well, The Wanderer, there was a warehouse fire and all the books that were stored got destroyed.
You can't cut a break. Can't get a break for... Well, none of them had an easy life.
No, not too much.
But they probably wouldn't have thought of that then. You know, it was life as is. I was telling the grandchildren earlier, I love the story of Hawthorne's wife.
Oh, yeah.
Who died in England and was buried in England, and he was buried here.
My favorite part of that story is a couple of years back, they brought her back.
To be with him.
But the irony of that was, in the storm, a hawthorn tree was struck by lightning and fell and broke the grave.
Wow. You don't know whether that wasn't exactly what they wanted. Maybe they needed a continent between them?
But the eldest daughter, or actually no, youngest daughter, was started a convent over in New York, and those sisters were taking care of the grave over there, and they were responsible for bringing it back.
Bringing it here, yeah. I loved that story. I didn't know. I can't remember knowing that the tree fell over. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
But then eclectically, you use a lot of Greek references as well.
I like mythology sometimes, and there's a lot of different ones that I did, and I've got some Greek mythology references coming in my next collection too. But some of them were different myths, plus Legends of Woburn, I was influenced by too.
That was quite a book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a story about, in the beginning of that book, about a Indian chief who disappeared and then reappeared. And I was always struck by the end of that when the chief is looking out over the Horn Pond area and sees all the new settlement popping up. So, it's not too bad.
For people who don't realize that the cover, your wife took the picture?
I took the picture.
You took the picture.
Yeah.
And this is Horn Pond Mountain, which we both know because we're both from Woburn.
Mm-hmm.
And Mount Towanda is our mountain formed by a glacier a million zillion years ago, and very often referred to as the only place in the world that certain flowers grow because of the glacial deposits that are assembled in it. And there's a much Indian folklore associated. And Inatu was its Indian name. And the island was Wabisi. What's left of the island
What's
now.
left of it, yeah.
But if you grew up in Woburn, you grew up with Horn Pond.
My dad always told me there was a bowling alley on that
There
island.
was,
Once upon a time.
and you didn't believe him, I can tell. There was, it was big. Now I'm going to tell my age. No, I read about this. There was a bowling alley, and you could rent boats and canoes in a dance hall, unless I'm mistaken.
I think there was on there.
So that during Prohibition, you could be, and if they were coming, you had plenty of time to ditch the liquor before they finished rowing their boat.
And there was an ice house too.
Several on each end of the pond. In the cove, which is only recently, the last vestiges went down within the last 20, 25 years. And then there were ice houses way down the other end, and what I knew as Foley Beach. I don't know what you knew as Foley Beach.
I used to swim at the new Foley Beach, which is on the other side.
And you can't
The old
swim
Foley
there
Beach,
anymore.
no, it's a shame, but it's just a lifeguard issue. But the old Foley Beach is, there's a little shack on the other side that I looked at, and it always looked like a concession stand to me.
Yes, it was, across the street. Yeah, the best ice cream in the world. And the beach was on the Arlington Road side on the right, and it seems to be inhabited now by Canadian geese.
Oh, yeah. I've seen a couple of people actually feeding the geese out there.
Yes, yes. Now, do you have to be inspired? Do you write on call? Do you write as you're driving down the road? Does every pocket have a note in it?
I try to write every day, and I try to keep a notebook on me, but sometimes I can't always, and sometimes I just influenced by something I read. If I'm not, I find the more I'm not reading, the less I write. It's kind of weird.
No, a lot of poets are inspired by what they see. A particular place and time, someplace where they are. And you love the seashore.
Oh, yeah.
That comes through beautifully.
Yeah, Revere Beach and Kelly's out there is always a good, but...
You didn't write a poem about Kelly's roast beef.
No.
But it would probably be read and be very popular if you did.
I did Revere Beach, and I think it's a triolet, and I mentioned I did something a little that I probably shouldn't have. There was, there's no jetty out on Revere Beach, but I put a jetty into that poem because I was thinking of Maine as well.
Oh, did anybody pick on you for it? Because
No.
the critics like to jump in there.
No, they didn't pick on me on that.
Well, good enough.
Yep. And actually, I was on with Jordan Rich, and he actually likes that one best.
Isn't he fun?
Oh,
what
yeah.
What a pleasant individual.
Definitely.
Yeah, and again, his opportunity, giving you the opportunity and other authors to get out there and be known, which again, 20, 25 years ago, just didn't happen. And I got to tell you, some of the people that have sat in that seat, Robert, they have gone on to great success. It's a jumping point.
Yeah, my one of my favorite authors was Stephen King, and in high school, I remember being at the parent-teachers meeting, and my English teacher said, "I'm glad he's reading, but I'm not too thrilled it's Stephen King."
We had Stephen King on this show.
Well,
He is funny. He told the story of absolute abject poverty. They're living in a one-room apartment. She was very pregnant. She said, "Stephen, get a job." And he says, "If only the paperback rights for Carrie come in, well, we've got it made because we get half or whatever they get." She said, "Stephen, get a job." And she went off to work. He got a phone call, and they sold the rights to Carrie for like $150,000, the paperback book rights, which meant, of course, they got $75,000. Now, it's Sunday night in Orono, Maine. He wants to buy her a present to celebrate when she comes home from work. Do you know what was open in Orono, Maine at 9 o'clock on a Sunday night about 40 years ago?
no.
Rexall Drug Store. He bought her a hairdryer to celebrate that they were on their way. Now, you don't think Stephen King is funny.
Oh, I do.
Yeah, he was most enjoyable. You said something about another collection, the next collection. Are you diligently working on a next collection?
I used a little bit of tip money that I got off my job for trying to work with an editor on my next book. And I'm actually in the process of doing some exercises with her so I can get the collection finished. See if I can tweak it a little bit.
Do you like being edited? I don't like a governor on what I write at all. I love 7-mile run-on sentences.
I do and I don't, but
It's a learning process.
yeah, I find if somebody challenges me, sometimes I might learn something from it and get a little better. And some of the, when I first started writing on allpoetry.com, I was writing more like poems just like Circle of Friends, where I just one-offed and went from the beginning to the end. And I was actually challenged to try to learn some meter. And,
I was just telling the girls about iambic pentameter. I think it's a marvelous word.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, can't spell it for nothing.
IAMB.
Ooh, yeah, that's about as far as I get.
IAMB.
But do you want
I
to
see.
write for what the public wants to read? That's why I don't like to be edited, because they're coming from a point of view most often. It's what the public wants. And I want it to be what I want. You don't have to like it.
I don't really write for what the public wants. I like to just write for what satisfies me. And I was always told that was the best way to go.
Yeah, but when you sit down with an editor, they have a tendency to take out a toolbox that I've never seen and, make it proper prose, commas, periods, and all that boring stuff.
I'm also very stubborn, so I will argue if I believe in a point.
Now, you weren't trained as a writer.
No, I've actually picked it up as I went along. I was never that good in English class to actually be promoted to the good classes where you learn the fun stuff in writing.
But I'm glad you came out in spite of it. I don't think we should categorize education. I mean, all the things you've done, Woburn High, Northeast Vogue, culinary arts, even working at the Hawthorne. I mean, come
definitely.
on, all those life experiences, they have to mean something.
Oh, definitely. And actually, I try to put myself in very uncomfortable situations.
Oh, I get it. That's easy.
I didn't like being in front of people, so of course, run for alderman at large and have to stand before the entire city is a little unnerving.
But you did it.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a fun experience.
Yeah, I loved it. I ran for mayor once, and it was a gas and a half, I got to tell you. Came in second. Where will you go from here? What's the next book's name going to be, or haven't you gotten there yet?
I haven't actually figured that out yet.
You're not inspired?
Well, actually, I picked in the Murmuring Trees out because it was a little bit of part of one of the poems in the book. And it went well with the picture I took.
I asked my husband whereabouts on the mountain that you were, because he managed that mountain for 40 years.
As you walk up the trail, of course it's icy in the winter.
And muddy in the spring.
Yes. There's a paved part as it's going up and around
To the
that
old
way.
water reservoir.
Yeah. It's just before you get to the old water reservoir. But a little further up than right in the beginning. I would say it's about halfway up.
Your spot to think and ponder.
Oh, I like being at the top of the mountain for that.
It's a beautiful view.
Oh, definitely. There's a nice seat that you can see Boston and Winchester from, or you can sit by the tree and look out over the city and see the church.
The big Congo church. Yeah, I've got that picture that Joe Brown took in the autumn with all the beautiful autumn leaves from the top down.
Oh, definitely.
I was always fascinated in the historical books that I read. They were known as woodlots, and every family had a woodlot. Do you know what that means?
It was a woodlot was where they got their firewood from, is what I'm assuming.
Right. So your house is here on Montreal Avenue, and my home was here.
Yep.
And we would have owned a woodlot within walking distance of our home, so that we could always have
Fuel
there were
warmth.
many a battle fought over somebody pilfering the wood off of your woodlot.
Oh, definitely.
In Horn Pond Mountain, I believe in John McElhaney's book, he says of a death on Horn Pond Mountain with regard to a woodlot that caused much commotion during a very bad winter.
I think the spot where Thoreau wrote Walden Pond was a woodlot for Emerson.
Very possibly.
Because it was Emerson's land, and Channing made a joke and Thoreau took him seriously and went and wrote there. Of course, Channing went and visited him too. He was the winter visitor that brought the mirth and laughter in Thoreau's book. Yep.
Do you wish you had known them personally? Would you have fit right in?
I probably wouldn't have fit in.
Why? You're
I don't know.
thoughtful. You appreciate nature.
I don't know if I would have fit in with those guys.
I was sitting in the studio at another time with a handwritten Alcott manuscript on my lap that had never been published. And my beeper went off, and I got up and walked right out of the studio, completely wired for sound and everything, dropped Alcott on the floor and stepped over it. I was mortified. Absolutely. But you become a mother just like that when they call. Does your wife appreciate your poetry? Do you write her poems?
Yes.
Oh, cool. Do you give them as gifts?
Rarely, but sometimes.
Oh, I enjoy that. I think that's fun.
Yep.
To, do something specifically for one individual.
There was something in the next collection. It's a guy that I'm not absolutely positive I knew him in high school, because more people knew me than I knew them. But a bunch of my friends were distraught from high school, and so it was on Facebook one night. Word came out that he had overdosed. So kind of to cheer one of them up, I wrote a little elegy for him and his kids, because he had 2 little kids, and very young to go. He was only in his 40s.
Too young. Too young.
But it was one of those heroin things.
I'm so glad that I grew up when I did, because we didn't have any of that influence. And my kids, thank you God, got to grow up in a time where they had to make conscious choices, and thank you God they did. But I'm not sure I would want to be a young person today, or be raising young people today.
I think it's a little bit more distracting, because you have all this new technology coming up. It's easier to actually keep track of them.
That's what you think. You know how to push those buttons.
Well, you can actually track the kids' cell phone signals.
I didn't have to. You ever hear me call my kids? They don't need a cell phone. They don't even need a cell phone tower. I get so afraid of depending on all this technology. And I had asked one of the girls the other day, I can see the day that everybody's going to, everything in their whole life is going to be in that phone.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
the phone's
good and
going to
bad.
be gone. And can you, the next invention should be duplication when you plug it in to recharge all the information. She said, Mommy, it's there in the cloud already. And I said, I
Yes.
don't trust the cloud either because we have thunderstorms. And the very next day, the cloud went out
Yep.
for 24 hours.
All the cloud is a server.
Which makes sense to you. It makes no sense to me whatsoever.
A server is just almost like a bunch of computers hooked together to
Yeah.
create a massive memory bank.
Yeah. Do you remember the blackout along the eastern seaboard from, I think it was Georgia, all the way up to Maine? We went like 48, 72 hours with no electricity whatsoever, no street lights, no heat, no air conditioning.
Yep.
The world went nuts. They don't know how to function without it.
Oh no, they wouldn't. There'd be a little bit of panic if
A little. And that was at the very beginning of technology. Now I can imagine what would happen if somebody kicked the plug.
It could happen. Just think of it this way. Everything's connected via satellite. If all the satellites go out at once, all communication will stop.
And everything else will stop too. Cash registers, pumps, street lights, navigation. Yeah. And I think, unfortunately, the Malaysia plane being down in the ocean.
That's
so far.
an irony of itself. They can track your cell phone, but they can't find the airplane.
No, the cell phones that were on the airplane. When do you propose to produce your next book?
I'm hoping by the summer.
Oh, that's soon. You're that close. How many poems in it?
It's around 100 or so.
Good enough. Good enough. And does your wife read it before you turn it in?
She reads every poem as I write them, and
Is she a good editor?
she says everything is good. So
And how about Mom? Is she supportive of your writing?
yes.
Yes.
little
Well,
bit.
she's a mom.
She bought the book.
You
As
made
soon
her
as-
buy the book.
Oh, she bought it before I could give it to her. I didn't make her buy it.
Did you get one in the Woburn Public Library?
Yes, I gave him one.
And how about the high school library?
I haven't given them one yet.
Yeah, good idea.
I should too.
Yeah, especially with the knowledge, maybe a book plate in the front of it that you are a Woburn kid. Right up there with Burgosian and Paleologus and Carr.
I think I went to Woburn High all of one semester.
Well, you still went.
Yeah, the old
They didn't throw you out.
no,
No.
the old building was fun. I just went back to the Vogue because I kind of missed the 1 week of shop and 1 week of school. So I went back and started culinary arts with that, whereas I was in printing before.
But that's part of your own education, not put out by a guidance teacher. You didn't zero in on any one thing. And I think that makes it a more full experience, and it explains why it's an eclectic collection of poems and not just all one particular venue. I hope you'll bring the new book back with it to us when you finish it.
Oh, definitely.
And let us premiere it from here.
Definitely.
It's been very nice having you. Thank
Pleasure.
you very much for
Thank you.
coming. My regards to all in the family.
Definitely.
That's it today from Off the Shelf, Books on Tour. Thanks for being with us. Robert Tirrell in the Murmuring Trees.